Hello, and welcome to Space Science Before Sleep. If a galaxy could breathe, where would we hear it in the hush between stars, or in the slow turning of everything we call home? Maybe you have had a long day, and your mind is still carrying small lists, unfinished thoughts, and the gentle weight of being awake for too many hours. You have got nothing to do but rest. Let your breathing slow a little, as if each inhale is smoothing the surface of a quiet lake. And let your shoulders soften, as if gravity is finally giving you permission to set everything down. Tonight we are drifting through the Milky Way, not as a place to conquer, but as a wide, patient motion, a calm ocean of stars that has been turning for longer than any human story. If this helps you unwind, consider liking and subscribing, one calm orbit at a time. Now, let us begin. When we look up at the night sky, it can feel still like a painted ceiling made of lights, steady and unmoving. But the Milky Way is not a fixed picture. It is a slow choreography, a great rotating pattern, where almost everything is in motion and yet nothing is in a hurry. There is a kind of time that belongs to galaxies, not counted in hours or days, but in long, sweeping arcs of travel, measured by how long it takes a star like our Sun to go all the way around the center of its galaxy. That long loop is sometimes called a galactic year, and it is one of the gentlest clocks in nature. A galactic year is not a date you circle on a calendar. It is more like a deep, steady rhythm, the slow pulse of orbiting matter. Our Sun, along with the planets and everything that travels with it, is moving through the galaxy even now. The Earth is spinning beneath you as you rest. The Earth is also traveling around the Sunday, and the Sun is traveling around the Milky Way. These layers of motion are real, but they are soft enough that you do not feel them, and steady enough that your body can ignore them. Still, it can be soothing to remember that you are not stuck in place. You are riding a long, quiet curve through a spiral galaxy carried along by gravity and momentum, by the gentle rules that keep orbits stable. If we could step far away and look back, we might see the Milky Way as a broad disk, with a central bright region and arms that curl outward. But from inside the disk, our view is different. We see a band of light, a misty river across the sky made of countless distant stars. That bright band is not a separate object. It is the view along the dense plane of the galaxy, the direction where stars are packed more closely together. In the dark of a clear night, it can look like pale smoke. In reality, it is a crowded line of suns, most too faint to pick out, one by one blended into a soft glow. And yet, even without leaving Earth, we can sense the movement of the galaxy through careful observation. Astronomers watch how stars shift in tiny ways across years. They measure how gas clouds move. They listen to the faint radio whispers of hydrogen, and they track the subtle gravitational pull that shapes everything. From these clues, they can tell that the Milky Way rotates, that our Sun is not near the center, but somewhere in the disk, and that the galaxy has a kind of ordered spin, like a slow-turning wheel. But this wheel is not solid. It is more like a vast, thin city of stars and gas, with neighborhoods and lanes, and empty stretches between. Some regions are bright with star formation, others are calm and sparse, and the motion is not the same everywhere. Stars closer to the center travel along tighter paths. Farther out paths widen, and orbits take longer. In this way, the galactic year is not one universal number for all things. It depends on where you are in the galaxy, on how far you are from the center, on how tightly gravity holds you in its embrace. So when we say our Sun has a galactic year, we are speaking gently about the time it takes for our solar system to complete one long orbit around the Milky Way's center. It is a number that scientists estimate from measurements of distance and speed, but tonight you do not need the exact figure. You only need the feeling of it, the sense that the galaxy is a slow clock and that you are inside its turning. Your day may have been fast. Your thoughts may have moved in quick loops, but the Milky Way is moving on a timescale that makes human hurry seem very small. In that enormous span of motion, the Sun has completed many orbits since it formed. And in each orbit, it has passed through changing regions of the galaxy. Sometimes it may have traveled through areas with more gas and dust, where new stars were forming. Sometimes it may have drifted through quieter corridors where the space between stars felt wider. Over these long cycles, the galaxy itself has changed too. Spiral patterns can shift, clusters can dissolve, small galaxies can be pulled in and absorbed. But the basic rhythm remains a turning disk, with a bright center and sweeping arms, a long story told through movement rather than words. For a moment, it can be comforting to imagine the Milky Way as a kind of cradle, not in a dramatic sense, but in a calm one. Gravity holds stars in their paths. The galaxy's mass creates an invisible landscape of valleys and slopes that guide motion. Your body knows something about this. Your blood circulates because of pressure and rhythm. Your lungs move because of gentle cycles of expansion and release. In a quiet way, the galaxy also has cycles, slow expansions of star-forming regions, long orbits of clusters, the steady circulation of matter through time. And if you are tired, this idea can settle into you like a soft blanket, because the universe is not asking you to keep up. It is turning with patience. The Milky Way has been rotating for ages beyond counting. It will keep rotating long after this night has passed. And you, for this small moment, are allowed to rest inside that larger motion, like a small boat on a wide, calm sea. A little farther into the idea of galactic time, we can notice something gentle about the night sky. When you look at a familiar constellation, it seems permanent. But it is not. The stars that make up those patterns are at different distances, moving in different directions, each on its own orbit around the galaxy. Over many thousands of years, the shapes of constellations slowly change. They are not fixed pictures. They are temporary alignments in a moving starfield. We live inside a dynamic system, and the sky we see is a snapshot of a dance that never stops. Somewhere in that dance is our own path. The sun's orbit around the galactic center is not a perfect circle. It is a gentle, slightly wandering path, influenced by the distribution of mass in the galaxy. It also moves up and down through the disk in a slow, bobbing motion, crossing the galactic plane over long stretches of time. These are details that scientists continue to refine, because measuring our motion from within the system is delicate work. But the general picture is steady enough to hold in your mind tonight. You are part of a spiral galaxy, carried along by a vast rotation, in a rhythm that is slow enough to feel like peace. And this is where our journey begins, with the galaxy as a calm clock, a slow measure of motion. Before we drift into the spiral arms, before we talk about invisible scaffolds and the deep memory of collisions, we start with time. Not the time on your phone or the time on the wall, but the longer time that belongs to stars and orbits. If you find your thoughts racing, you can return to this simple image. A long orbit, a steady turning, a quiet curve through space. Let your breath match that idea, slow and continuous. One inhale, one exhale. Nothing to solve, nothing to fix. Just a gentle awareness that the Milky Way is moving, and you are moving with it, safely, steadily, and quietly, through a night that asks only for rest. Tonight we can drift a little farther outward from that slow galactic clock and begin to notice the Milky Way's spiral shape, not as a rigid pinwheel, but as something more like a pattern in moving water. From inside the galaxy, the spiral is not a single object you can point to with your finger. It is a broad arrangement, a shifting set of lanes where stars, gas, and dust gather and thin out, where brightness rises and fades, and where the galaxy seems to remember its own motion by the way it forms gentle curves. When people first hear the phrase spiral arms, it is easy to imagine the arms as solid structures, like the wooden spokes of a wheel holding everything in place. But the Milky Way is not built that way. The stars are not attached to the arms, like lights glued onto a ribbon. Stars move on their own orbits, and over time they drift in and out of these brighter regions. The arms, in a calm sense, are more like patterns that persist, even though the material inside them changes. If you have ever watched a slow current in a river, you might see a line of foam or leaves gather in a gentle arc, then break apart, then gather again. The river keeps flowing, yet the pattern returns. spiral arms can be understood with that same kind of quiet logic. Astronomers have learned that many spiral arms behave like density waves, which is a soft way of saying that the arms can be regions where matter is a little more crowded, where gravity gently nudges gas and stars into a common rhythm. As material moves through an arm, it can compress gas clouds, and when gas is compressed, new stars can form. That is one reason spiral arms often look brighter. They can host clusters of young, hot stars and glowing regions of gas lit up by starlight. But even this brightness is not permanent. The youngest stars age, the glow fades, and the galaxy keeps turning, always changing, always returning to the same broad spiral feeling. In our own Milky Way, we live in a quieter neighborhood of the spiral, in a region sometimes described as a smaller spur between larger arms. From here, the spiral structure is not something we see as a complete shape. We infer it by mapping gas clouds and star-forming regions, by measuring distances and motions, and by observing how different parts of the galaxy are arranged. It is like being inside a forest at night and trying to understand the shape of the entire landscape by listening to echoes and tracing the flow of wind through the trees. It takes patience and it takes many kinds of observation, but over time, the picture becomes clearer. One gentle way to think about spiral arms is to imagine the galaxy as a music box, not with fast notes, but with slow, repeating harmonies. The disk rotates. The gravity of the galaxy guides the motion. And within that motion, the arms appear as repeating curves, places where the song of the galaxy becomes a little louder, a little brighter, a little more crowded with new stars. The overall effect is not sharp and mechanical. It is soft and organic, like a long pattern that has been drawn and redrawn by motion itself. There is also a quiet tension in spiral galaxies, a balance between order and drift. The Milky Way has structure, but it is not frozen. Its stars are separated by immense distances, and yet they share a common rotation. Its gas can be stirred by the gravity of the arms, and by the movement of stars, and by the gentle influence of nearby companions. Over long spans of time, arms can change their strength, their shape, even their number. Some arms can fade. Others can become more prominent. This does not mean the galaxy is unstable. It means the galaxy is alive with slow dynamics, the kind that do not demand attention in a single night, but unfold over ages. Signature. Segment. For a moment, imagine the Milky Way's spiral arms as slow currents of light, like faint streams in a dark ocean. You are not watching waves crash. You are watching water that moves so gently that it looks still until you stare long enough. In those currents, gas drifts and gathers, and when it gathers, it becomes a little denser, a little colder in places, and a little more ready to form stars. Regions that were once quiet can over time brighten with new suns, like lanterns appearing one by one along a shoreline. Then, as those stars age and spread out, the glow softens again and the current continues. It is not a sudden event. It is a slow blooming. Evidence suggests these arms are not rigid. They can be more like patterns that guide and shape, while the stars themselves keep traveling, like travelers moving through a city where the streets remain, even as the crowd changes. Back in our calm journey, it is helpful to remember that spiral arms can have different explanations depending on the galaxy, and sometimes even within the same galaxy. In some cases, interactions with other galaxies can stir a spiral pattern, like a gentle tug on a rotating disk. In other cases, the arms may emerge from the galaxy's own internal motion, from small irregularities that grow into larger waves. Computers can simulate these patterns, and the results often resemble what we see in telescopes, which is comforting because it suggests we are on the right track. But the Milky Way is still a complex system, and scientists continue to refine how its arms are structured, how many major arms there are, and how these arms behave over time. If you imagine the galaxy from above, the spiral looks graceful and clear, but from within it is layered, partly obscured by dust and filled with distance. Dust in the galaxy can block visible light, hiding stars behind it. This is why astronomers use many different kinds of light, including infrared and radio, to map the galaxy's structure. Infrared can pass through dust more easily, revealing stars that would otherwise be hidden. Radio observations, especially of hydrogen gas, can trace the broad distribution of matter in the disk. Each wavelength is like a different sense, and together they help us build a calmer, more complete image of the spiral. All of this, the arms, the gas, the star formation, can be held in your mind without needing sharp detail. Tonight you can treat the spiral arms as a gentle idea, a reminder that the Milky Way is not a random sprinkling of stars, but a flowing pattern shaped by gravity and time. Our galaxy has lanes and curves. It has regions of quiet and regions of activity. And through it all, the slow galactic clock keeps turning, carrying us along. As you rest, you might let the notion of spiral arms become a kind of soft visual in your imagination. Not a bright diagram, not a hard line, but a faint curl of starlight. A slow drifting sweep. A pattern that exists not because stars are fixed in place, but because motion itself can create gentle order. In the next part of our journey, we will begin to ask a calm question that hides beneath all of this visible beauty. If the stars and gas are moving as they do, if spiral patterns persist and the galaxy holds together for so long, what is providing the deeper structure, the quiet support behind the scenes? This is where we begin to drift toward the invisible scaffold that astronomers infer the presence that does not shine, but still shapes the Milky Way's motion. As we drift onward, the spiral arms begin to feel like a visible surface, a graceful pattern floating on something deeper. The Milky Way looks bright where stars gather and darker where dust and distance soften the view. But when astronomers measure how the galaxy moves, they find that the light we see does not tell the whole story. The Milky Way rotates with a steadiness that suggests there is more mass than we can account for by stars and gas alone, as if the galaxy is being held together by a quiet framework that does not glow. This is where dark matter enters our calm journey, not as a frightening unknown, but as a gentle reminder that nature can be real without being seen. Dark matter is a name for something inferred, a presence that reveals itself through gravity. It does not shine in visible light. It does not form bright clouds or warm surfaces. We do not see it in telescopes the way we see stars. And yet the motions of stars, the way galaxies spin and the way large structures hold together across space, all suggest that an unseen mass is there. One of the simplest places to feel this mystery is in the rotation of a galaxy. If most of the mass were concentrated in the bright central regions where stars are densest, then stars farther out should orbit more slowly, the way planets farther from the sun travel more gently along their wider paths. That is what simple expectations suggest. But in many galaxies, including our own, the outer regions do not slow down the way you would predict, if only the visible matter mattered. Instead, stars and gas far from the center appear to move at speeds that imply extra mass is present, spread out in a wide halo, extending beyond the bright disk. Astronomers describe this with rotation curves, which are simply plots of how orbital speed changes with distance from the galactic center. The details are measured from light and from radio signals, from the Doppler shift of gas clouds and the motion of stars. The results, in broad strokes, suggest that the Milky Way is wrapped in a larger invisible component, something that contributes gravity without contributing light. This is the dark matter halo, a gentle, unseen globe surrounding the galaxy, holding it in a stable embrace. It is important to treat this idea softly. Dark matter is not fully understood, and there are several ways scientists think about it. The most common view is that dark matter is made of particles that interact very weakly with ordinary matter and with light. They do not clump into stars. They do not glow. They simply pass through most things quietly, leaving only gravity as their main signature. Other ideas explore whether gravity itself behaves differently on large scales, whether the laws we use need a subtle adjustment. But the evidence from many corners of astronomy continues to point towards something like dark matter as the simplest explanation, an unseen mass that helps shape galaxies and the cosmic web. So when we say dark matter is an invisible scaffold, we mean that it provides structure. It creates the gravitational landscape in which the visible galaxy forms. In the early universe, when everything was younger and more evenly spread, dark matter may have begun clumping, first gathering into halos. Ordinary matter, the gas that can cool and radiate, would then have fallen into those halos, settling into disks, forming stars, and building the galaxies we see. In that sense, dark matter is like the quiet frame of a house, not the walls you paint or the lamps you light, but the underlying support that lets everything else take shape. Signature segment. Imagine for a moment that the Milky Way is resting inside a transparent dome, a structure you cannot see unless you watch how the stars move. The dome does not sparkle. It does not cast a shadow. It simply has weight, a gentle pull that guides motion. This is one way to picture a dark matter halo, not as a solid shell, but as a wide, diffuse presence. The evidence comes from patterns from the way outer stars keep their steady pace, from the way the galaxy holds together for ages without unraveling. Scientists estimate that there is more of this unseen mass than the ordinary matter that makes stars and planets, but the exact amount and distribution are still being refined, and that is part of the calm beauty of the idea. We can sense a hidden structure by watching the dance it shapes, as if hearing the outline of a silent instrument by the notes it makes possible. When you let that image settle, dark matter becomes less like a puzzle that demands an answer tonight, and more like a quiet layer of reality. It is the reminder that gravity does not care about brightness. Gravity responds to mass, visible or not. And in a galaxy, gravity is the gentle guide that keeps orbits stable and patterns coherent. Dark matter also helps explain why galaxies like the Milky Way have the shapes they do. Without an extra gravitational framework, the outer regions of the disk could be less stable over long time spans. The halo's presence makes it easier for the galaxy to hold its form, while still allowing the spiral patterns to arise, drift, and persist. It is as if the visible galaxy is a soft cloth, and the dark matter halo is the unseen hand that keeps that cloth from slipping away, holding it in place while the folds shift. There is also a larger picture beyond our single galaxy. When astronomers map the universe on enormous scales, they see clusters and filaments and vast spaces between. Galaxies are not scattered randomly. They form a cosmic web, and dark matter appears to be a major part of that web's underlying structure. In some observations, such as the bending of light from distant galaxies by large masses in front of them, scientists can infer where mass is concentrated even when that mass is not shining. This technique, called gravitational lensing, provides another quiet line of evidence that the universe contains more than what we see. But tonight we can keep it close and gentle, returning to the Milky Way itself. Our galaxy's visible disk, with its spiral arms and bright starfields, is only one layer. Beneath it, around it, through it, is a more subtle component that shapes the motion of everything. It is not something you need to imagine as a threat or as an ominous dark. It is simply unseen, like wind. You cannot see wind, but you see leaves move. You cannot see gravity, but you see orbits. Dark matter is like that, inferred by the way the cosmos behaves. In the next part of our journey, we will let the Milky Way's calm structure connect to its history, because a galaxy is not only a rotating pattern held by an invisible scaffold, it is also a memory of encounters, a record of smaller companions that have been stretched and folded into the Milky Way over time. We will drift into the gentle story of collisions and mergers, including the Sagittarius dwarf galaxy, long streams of stars, and the far future, meeting with Andromeda not as a catastrophe, but as a slow reshaping, written across billions of years. With the spiral arms softly glowing above us, and the invisible scaffold of dark matter quietly holding the whole system together, we can now drift into the Milky Way's memory. A galaxy is not only a structure, it is a history. It carries the record of where it has been, not in words, but in motions, in streams of stars, and in the faint traces of past encounters. From far away, a spiral galaxy can look serene, like a calm whirlpool of light. But galaxies grow over time, and one of the main ways they grow is by collecting smaller companions. In the vastness of space, there are many small galaxies, dwarf galaxies, orbiting larger ones, drifting nearby, sometimes passing close enough to be gently captured. This does not have to be imagined as a sudden crash. On galactic timescales, mergers are often slow, drawn-out processes, like two currents joining in a wide ocean. Gravity reaches out, reshapes paths, and over long spans, smaller systems can be stretched and absorbed. The Milky Way has likely experienced many such events. Some happened so long ago that their details are difficult to recover. Others are still unfolding today. One of the most famous ongoing encounters involves a small companion known as the Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy. It is a modest galaxy compared to the Milky Way, and it is orbiting through the Milky Way's outer regions, being pulled and stretched by our galaxy's gravity. As it moves, stars can be stripped from it, and these stars do not disappear. They continue along similar orbits, forming long, faint streams that wrap around the Milky Way like ribbons. These stellar streams are one of the most beautiful ways to sense galactic history. They are not bright in the night sky, the way the Milky Way's band is bright. They are delicate, subtle. They often require careful surveys and precise mapping. But once found, they show that the Milky Way is not a perfectly isolated island. It is a collector of nearby material. It is a system that has been shaped by companionship. A helpful way to picture a merger is to imagine stirring a cup of cream into a quiet, dark tea. At first, you see streaks, pale ribbons twisting in slow curls. Over time, those streaks stretch and blend, becoming harder to distinguish. The tea is still tea, but it now carries the memory of that addition in its changed color and texture. In a galaxy, stars are like those streaks, except they do not dissolve chemically. They remain individual stars, but their orbits can be stretched into patterns that carry the memory of where they came from. The Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy is especially important because it is not only a historical curiosity, it is a living example of how the Milky Way continues to grow and change. As this dwarf galaxy passes through, it can also disturb the Milky Way's disk, slightly, gently tugging on it, and contributing to subtle ripples and warps. These effects are still being studied, and the Milky Way's full response to such encounters is an active area of research. But the general idea is calm and clear. The Milky Way is not a rigid platter of stars. It is flexible. It can be nudged. Beyond Sagittarius, astronomers have found other streams and remnants suggesting multiple mergers in the past. Some of these past events may have contributed to the Milky Way's halo of stars, the roughly spherical distribution of older stars surrounding the disk. Some may have helped build the bulge. Some may have contributed to the disk itself. The Milky Way's current form is the result of many influences layered over time. Signature segment. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a slow ribbon of starlight, so faint that it is almost like mist wrapping around the Milky Way. This is the feeling of a stellar stream. It is a trail left by a smaller galaxy that wandered too close and was gently unspooled by gravity. The Sagittarius Dwarf Galaxy is one of the best-known sources of such streams, and astronomers have traced its stellar debris in long arcs across the sky, like a quiet handwriting in the halo. These stars are not shouting their origin. They are simply moving patiently along paths shaped by the Milky Way's gravity. Evidence suggests that by mapping these streams, scientists can learn about the Milky Way's mass distribution, including the shape of its dark matter halo, because the stream's path is guided by the galaxy's overall gravitational field. In a calm way, the stream becomes both a memory of a merger and a tool for understanding the invisible structure that holds everything together. When we step back from the details, the idea of mergers can sound dramatic, but the reality is often slow and gentle. Stars are so far apart that even when galaxies overlap, individual stars rarely collide. What happens instead is a long exchange of gravity. Orbits change. Gas clouds can be compressed. New stars can form in some regions. Over time, the two systems become one larger, more blended system. In the night sky, you would not see a sudden flash. You would see a patient reshaping a soft rearrangement. And if that feels peaceful, it can be because it happens on a timescale so long that it becomes almost like geology. Mountains rise and erode on timescales far beyond human lifetimes, and because of that they feel calm. Galactic mergers are like that. They are the slow geology of the universe. There is also a future memory, written ahead of time, in the sense that the Milky Way is not alone in its region of space. Our nearest large neighbor is the Andromeda Galaxy. Andromeda is another spiral galaxy, and it is moving relative to us in a way that suggests that in the far future, the two galaxies will approach and interact. Scientists estimate this will happen on a timescale of billions of years, far beyond anything we need to hold tightly tonight. But it is part of the Milky Way's long story. This future encounter is often described as a collision, but again, it is more accurate to imagine it as a slow merging of two star cities passing through and around each other, gradually blending. Over time, the combined system would likely settle into a new shape. The exact outcome depends on details, such as the galaxy's masses, their dark matter halos, and their trajectories. Simulations suggest a variety of possible forms, but what matters for our calm journey is the sense of deep time. The Milky Way's life is not a static existence. It is an unfolding story of growth, motion, and change. So the Milky Way's spiral arms are not only patterns in a rotating disk, they are also part of a larger history, one shaped by companions. Dark matter provides the quiet framework, and mergers provide the long narrative arcs, stretching and folding through time. In the next part, we will begin to drift inward toward the Milky Way's core. We will move from the galaxy's broad outer story into its inner dynamics, where a central bar and bulge shape motion, and where a mostly quiet supermassive black hole, Sagittarius A star, sits like a dim lamp at the heart of our galaxy. Now we can let our attention move inward slowly, as if we are following a gentle current toward the Milky Way's center. We began with the galaxy as a long, calm clock, then watched spiral arms flow like drifting patterns, then sensed the invisible scaffold of dark matter and listened to the galaxy's memory in streams and mergers. All of those layers are true at once, but the inner galaxy has its own personality, its own quiet dynamics, a different kind of motion, tighter, denser, and more complex, like the deeper part of a turning ocean. From where we are in the disk, the galactic center is not easily seen in ordinary starlight. Dust lies between us and the inner regions, scattering and blocking visible light. If you look toward the center with your eyes on a clear night, you might see the Milky Way brighten and thicken in that direction, but the true core is hidden behind curtains of dust. To understand what is there, astronomers use other kinds of light, especially infrared and radio waves, which can slip through the dust more easily. With those tools, the galaxy's inner structure becomes clearer, and it reveals something beautiful. The Milky Way is not just a disk with arms. It has a central bulge, a thicker, more crowded region of stars. And it has a bar, an elongated structure of stars, that stretches across the center like a gentle bridge. The presence of a bar changes the inner dynamics of the galaxy. In a simple rotating disk, stars move in roughly circular orbits around the center. But a bar creates a more complicated gravitational pattern. It can guide stars into slightly different paths, and it can also influence the movement of gas, funneling it inward along certain routes. This inward flow of gas matters because gas is the raw material for new stars, and because gas moving toward the center can feed activity there, including the slow growth of the galaxy's central black hole. When you hear the word black hole, it can feel intense, but tonight we can hold it gently. The Milky Way's central black hole is called Sagittarius A star. It is a supermassive black hole, and scientists estimate it has a mass of millions of suns. That sounds enormous, and it is. But in the context of a galaxy, it is also a small fraction of the total mass. The Milky Way contains hundreds of billions of stars, along with gas, dust, and dark matter. Sagittarius A star sits in the middle like a heavy point, a central anchor, but the whole galaxy is not defined by it alone. It is one important feature inside a much larger system. What makes Sagittarius A star especially suited to a bedtime journey is that it is mostly quiet. Some galaxies have central black holes that are actively feeding on large amounts of gas, producing brilliant jets and glowing disks that can outshine the entire galaxy. These are active galactic nuclei. Our galaxy is not like that, at least not now. Sagittarius A star is relatively calm, more like a dim lamp than a blazing torch. It does occasionally flare in certain wavelengths, and it likely consumes small amounts of material from time to time, but it is not in a violently active phase. The Milky Way's center is energetic in its own ways, with dense star clusters and complex gas clouds, but the central black hole is not dominating the sky with constant brilliance. One of the most remarkable pieces of evidence for Sagittarius A star comes from watching nearby stars. Astronomers have tracked the orbits of stars very close to the galactic center over many years, watching them loop around an invisible focus. These stars move quickly, and their paths reveal that a great mass is concentrated in a tiny region. This work helped confirm that a supermassive black hole sits at the center. There is something deeply calming about this. We cannot see the black hole directly in visible light, but we can understand its presence through motion, through the patient tracing of orbits, like reading the shape of an unseen object by watching the way leaves swirl around it in a stream signature segment. Picture the center of the Milky Way as a quiet room at the heart of a vast house. The outer halls are the spiral arms drifting with slow patterns, and the walls behind them are the unseen framework of dark matter. But the center is a dense, softly glowing space, crowded with stars, gas, and dust, all moving in tighter loops. In that room, Sagittarius A star rests like a dim lamp with its light turned down, heavy and silent. Scientists estimate it is about 4 million solar masses, inferred not from its brightness, but from the swift, graceful orbits of nearby stars. Those stars swing around the center on paths that repeat reliable and precise, telling us that something massive is there. Most nights, Sagittarius A star is quiet, and that quietness is part of its character. It reminds us that even the most extreme objects in the universe can spend long stretches of time simply being holding space, shaping motion without drama. Back in the wider journey, the central bar and bulge also contribute to what the Milky Way looks like from above. The bulge is a rounded, thicker region of older stars near the center, while the bar is an elongated feature that can be seen in infrared maps of the galaxy. The bar may also connect to the spiral structure, helping organize where arms begin and how they are sustained. In some barred spiral galaxies, arms appear to spring from the ends of the bar like streams leaving a bridge. The exact details for the Milky Way are still being refined, but the overall picture fits. Our galaxy is a barred spiral, a disk with arms shaped by a bar, and a bulge held within a broader halo of dark matter. The inner dynamics can also feel like a heartbeat, not because the galaxy is alive in the biological sense, but because the center is a place of concentrated motion and exchange. Gas can flow inward. Stars orbit in crowded regions. There are clusters where many stars are packed into a relatively small volume. There are energetic processes, winds from massive stars, occasional bursts of activity, and the constant hum of gravity working. If the galaxy has a rhythm, the core is one of its strongest notes. It is also worth remembering that our view of the center is shaped by our position. We sit in the disk, far from the core, looking through layers of dust. This is why our understanding has grown, as our instruments have improved, especially with radio astronomy and infrared telescopes. Each new survey adds a little more clarity, like a foggy window slowly becoming clean. Over time, we have moved from mythology and guesswork to a more accurate, yet still awe-filled picture of our galaxy's heart. And now, as we approach the end of this first arc of our story, it can be soothing to gather all the layers together. The Milky Way's galactic year is the slow clock that carries the sun along its orbit. The spiral arms are drifting patterns, like currents in a turning sea. Dark matter is the unseen scaffold that holds the galaxy's motion together. Mergers and stellar streams are the Milky Way's memory, a record of companions absorbed over time. And the core, with its bar and bulge, is the inner engine of dynamics, with Sagittarius A star sitting quietly at the center. If you are listening with sleepy attention, you do not have to hold every detail. You only need the feeling of a well-ordered, slow universe, a place where motion is steady and patient. Your day may have been filled with tasks and noise, but the Milky Way is not noisy. It is a long, calm rotation, a soft story written in gravity. And as you rest, you can imagine that you are safely inside that story, carried by a steady orbit, under a sky that is not still but gently turning. As we linger near the Milky Way's center, we can let the idea of the core settle into something gentle and steady. Not a place of alarm, but a place of concentration, where the same laws that guide quiet orbits in the outer disk also shape tighter motions closer in. The inner galaxy is like the deeper part of a slow whirlpool. The turning is stronger, the patterns are more intricate, and the crowd of stars becomes thicker, yet the overall feeling can remain calm because everything is still guided by gravity and time moving according to patient rules. In the outer regions where we live, the galaxy feels spacious. Between stars there are vast distances, and even in a spiral arm the gaps are enormous. But as you move inward, the density of stars increases. The bulge, the rounded central concentration, contains many older stars, and the light there, if we could see it clearly through dust, would feel richer, more layered, more like a thick fog of starlight. Within and around this bulge is the bar, an extended structure that changes the inner geometry. It is not a rigid beam, but a collective pattern made of many stars, whose orbits align in a way that creates an elongated shape across the center. A bar does something interesting to motion. It can act like a gentle guide rail for gas, nudging it inward over long spans of time. Gas does not behave exactly like stars, because gas clouds can collide, compress, and lose energy through radiation. That means gas can change its orbit more easily than stars can. In a barred galaxy, the gravitational pattern of the bar can encourage gas to drift toward the inner regions, collecting in rings and lanes, piling into denser reservoirs. Those reservoirs can become places where new stars are born. So even though the bulge contains many older stars, the inner galaxy can also have pockets of star formation, depending on where gas gathers and how it cools. This inward motion of gas is also one of the ways a central black hole can be supplied with material. A supermassive black hole is not actively feeding all the time, and in our galaxy, the central black hole is relatively quiet. But over long periods, gas can trickle inward, and occasional events can deliver small amounts of matter close enough to be captured. When that happens, the matter heats as it swirls, and the region can brighten in some wavelengths. These flares can be studied not as fireworks, but as faint flickers, brief hints that the center is not frozen, it is simply subdued. Near the very center lies a region that astronomers often describe as a dense cluster of stars. The idea is simple. The inner few light years, give or take, contain many stars packed into a small volume compared to the neighborhood of our Sunday. If you could stand there, you would see a sky crowded with bright points, and you would notice stars moving on fast, tight orbits. These stars are not all the same age, and the environment is complex. Gravity is strong there. Stellar winds and radiation can be intense. Yet even in this environment, the overall motion is orderly. The stars follow paths. The paths can be measured. The center can be mapped, step by patient step. There is a soothing lesson in how Sagittarius A star was confirmed. No one saw a dark object directly and declared it was there. Instead, scientists watched. They tracked stars over years. They recorded positions and velocities. They saw the same stars return along consistent loops. And from that, they inferred a massive object concentrated in a very small region. This is one of the calm powers of astronomy. It is a science that can learn from gentle changes and slow repetition, from the way a point of light shifts slightly against a background from a gradual curve traced across time. The bar itself may rotate as a pattern, and this adds another layer to the inner galaxy's rhythm. In a simple picture, the disk rotates, and the bar is part of that disk. But the bar has its own pattern. Speed the rate at which the elongated structure maintains its orientation as the galaxy turns. This matters because it shapes resonances, regions where orbits align and where gas can collect. These resonances can form rings, lanes, and other features in the inner disk. You do not need to memorize these details. You can simply hold the feeling that the inner Milky Way is not random. It is a place where gravity creates preferred paths and where structure emerges naturally from motion. The bulge, too, has its own character. Some bulges are thought to form in part through slow internal evolution, where the disk's structure changes over time, thickening the central regions. Other bulges are shaped more by mergers, where past interactions add stars and stir the inner system. The Milky Way's bulge likely carries pieces of both stories, the slow shaping from within and the long memory of encounters. In that way, the core contains echoes of the entire journey we have taken. It reflects the galaxy's gradual clock, its spiral flows, its invisible scaffolding, and its history of merging, all gathered into one central region. And still, despite all this complexity, it can be comforting to remember how small the central black hole is compared to the whole galaxy. The Milky Way is held together primarily by the combined gravity of its stars, gas, and dark matter. Sagittarius A star is important, especially near the center, but it is not a cosmic monster reaching out to pull everything in at once. For stars far out in the disk, the black hole's influence is tiny compared to the influence of the entire galaxy. This can help the mind relax. The center is powerful in its neighborhood, but the galaxy is a vast system, and most of it is ruled by distributed mass and steady rotation. If you find yourself drifting, you might imagine the Milky Way's core as the quiet heart of a great city at night. Streets are not empty, but the motion is smooth. Lights are concentrated, paths are well worn. The whole city turns slowly, and the center holds a kind of steady presence, not loud, not restless, simply there. The bar is like a long avenue of stars stretching across the inner regions. The bulge is like a warm glow around it, and at the very middle, Sagittarius A star is like a dark fountain, unseen but shaping the flow around it. From here, we can begin to widen our view again, not leaving the core behind, but letting it become part of the complete picture. In the next part, we will return to the feeling of the Milky Way as a whole, a single system with many layers, and we will let those layers settle into a calm, closing sense of belonging, as if you have traced a slow circle through your own galaxy and returned to a peaceful place to rest. Now that we have drifted close to the Milky Way's center, we can begin to float outward again, in the mind, not as a retreat, but as a widening, the way you might open your eyes a little after focusing on a single candle. And remember, the whole room around it, the core with its bar and bulge, and the quiet presence of Sagittarius A star is one part of the galaxy's story, but it rests inside a larger pattern that stretches far beyond the dense inner light, all the way into the broad disk, the spiral, arms, and the unseen halo that surrounds everything. It can be soothing to gather the Milky Way into one gentle image. Imagine a slow turning disk, thin compared to its width, like a wide, delicate plate of starlight. Across that disk, spiral arms trace, drifting curves not as fixed rails but as long repeated patterns, places where gas gathers and new stars can be born, then carried onward by the steady rotation. Around the disk, and beyond it, a halo extends both in stars and in dark matter, reaching farther than the bright band we see in the sky, forming a quiet, invisible shape that helps the galaxy hold together over deep time. When we began, we started with a calm clock, the idea of a galactic year. That single concept can still guide the whole story. It reminds you that the Milky Way is movement, and that movement can be gentle. Our solar system is not a static thing pinned in darkness. It is part of an orbit, part of a long, slow journey around the galaxy's center. The sun is traveling with countless other stars, each following its own path, each held in place not by walls but by gravity, the soft force that makes order out of space. And within that order, the spiral arms become like currents. They show how patterns can exist even when the material changes. Stars drift through, gas compresses, star formation flares quietly in certain lanes. Then the scene softens again, and the pattern continues. There is no single moment when the arms were built and then stayed forever. They are renewed by motion itself, a kind of ongoing, slow art. Beneath that visible art is the dark matter scaffold, the hidden framework that helps explain why the galaxy rotates the way it does and why the outer regions remain bound. There is something calming about the notion that the universe is allowed to have invisible support, that not everything needs to shine to be real. It can make your own unseen parts feel more acceptable too. The thoughts you do not speak, the feelings you cannot name, the quiet structures in you that still shape your day. In the galaxy, unseen mass shapes motion. In a mind, unseen patterns shape experience. Both can exist without needing to announce themselves. Then there is memory. The Milky Way is not alone in its region of space, and it has grown by meeting smaller companions. The Sagittarius dwarf galaxy, stretched into streams, is like a handwriting in the halo, a soft record of a long interaction. Other streams, other remnants, show that the Milky Way has been gathering and blending for ages. Even the future meeting with Andromeda can be placed into this same calm category of deep time. It is not something to worry about. It is a reminder that galaxies like clouds can change shape slowly, merging and reshaping without the kind of suddenness that troubles the human heart. If you let these layers rest together, the Milky Way becomes less like a distant object and more like a quiet environment you are already inside. You are not only looking at the galaxy, you are living within it. The light you see in the night sky is part of the disk around you. The darkness between stars is not emptiness but distance. And in that distance there is still gravity, still structure, still motion. Sometimes it helps to return to a simple scale. The Milky Way is enormous, but your place in it can be held gently. You are on a planet, in a solar system, in a spiral galaxy. That sounds grand, but it can also feel intimate when you remember that this is your natural address, the way a forest is the address of a bird. You do not have to earn your place in the galaxy. You were born within it. You belong to its motion without effort. And now, as you rest, it can be relaxing to imagine the different forms of time nested together. There is the time of your breath, slow and steady. There is the time of your heartbeat, a quiet rhythm you do not need to direct. There is the time of the Earth turning through night. There is the time of the Earth orbiting the Sunday. And beyond that, there is the time of the Sun orbiting the Milky Way. These rhythms are stacked like gentle waves. None of them need your attention to continue. They carry you without asking anything from you. You may also notice how the Milky Way teaches softness through uncertainty. Scientists have learned a great deal about our galaxy, but there are still details being refined. The exact shape of the spiral arms, the precise distribution of dark matter, the past sequence of mergers, the way gas flows in the bar, these are active subjects of study. Yet the overall picture is steady enough to hold. A rotating disk, spiral patterns, an unseen halo, a central bar and bulge, a quiet, supermassive black hole. The unknown details do not make the galaxy frightening. They make it alive with discovery, and discovery can be gentle. If your mind likes to wander, you can give it a soft path to follow. Picture yourself floating above the disk for a moment, looking down at the spiral curves, and then drifting outward to the halo, where the galaxy fades into darkness, not because it ends, but because it becomes too faint to see. Then slowly drift inward again, back toward the brighter center, where the bar stretches like a long bridge of stars, and the bulge glows with older light. At the very middle, imagine the quiet presence of Sagittarius, a star not shining brightly, not calling attention, simply shaping nearby orbits like a calm anchor. Then drift back out again to your own place in the disk, where your sun travels on its long path carrying this small world through a gentle night. There is a peaceful thought hidden in this. The Milky Way is a system that holds together without needing to be rigid. It is stable but not frozen. It is dynamic but not hurried. It changes, but it does so with patience. And you can borrow that mood for yourself. You can be steady without being tense. You can be in motion without rushing. You can allow change without fear. So as you settle deeper into rest, let the Milky Way be what it is: a calm orbiting home, a slow clock, a drifting spiral, an invisible scaffold, a memory of gentle mergers, and a quiet core at the center. Let these images soften into the background of your thoughts the way distant starlight softens at the edge of vision. Nothing needs to be solved tonight. The galaxy will keep turning, your breath will keep moving, and you can simply rest inside the long, calm orbit you already share. As the Milky Way settles into the background like a soft glow behind your eyelids, we can let the final moments of our journey become even quieter, like the last few steps of a long walk when you are already home. We have moved through the galaxy's slow clock, its spiral currents, its unseen scaffold, its long memory of mergers, and its calm inner heart. Now we can simply allow those ideas to become a gentle atmosphere, a sense of scale and steadiness that makes the mind less interested in rushing. If you are still awake, you might notice how easily the mind tries to measure things, to count, to label, to finish. But the Milky Way does not ask for completion. It does not ask to be summed up in a tidy conclusion. A galaxy is a living pattern of motion. It is always in the middle of something, always turning, always becoming. That can be strangely comforting because it means you are allowed to be in the middle too. You are allowed to rest without wrapping your day into a perfect ending. You are allowed to pause with some thoughts unfinished, because the universe itself is unfinished in the most peaceful way. In the quietest interpretation, the galactic year is like a lullaby, rhythm not meant to be counted precisely tonight, but meant to be felt. It is the reminder that your sense of time, which may have felt sharp and demanding today, is only one kind of time. There are slower kinds of time that exist naturally beyond schedules and notifications. The Milky Way's turning is one of them. It makes your personal rush feel smaller, not in a dismissive way, but in a comforting way, as if the pressure can loosen because the larger world is not hurrying. The spiral arms too can become a soothing image of flow. They show how a pattern can exist without being rigid, how a curve can persist even as the stars inside it drift along their own paths. This can be a gentle lesson for sleep. You do not need to force your thoughts to stop. You can let them move through you, the way stars move through the spiral arms, and allow a calmer pattern to emerge naturally as they settle. The mind can be like a galaxy that finds its own order over time, not by controlling every detail, but by letting motion happen in a gentle field of gravity. And then there is dark matter, the invisible scaffold. In daylight life, unseen things can feel unsettling. But in science, unseen structure can be a comfort, because it means the universe can hold itself together in ways we do not immediately perceive. Dark matter is a reminder that support does not always announce itself. Some supports are quiet. Some supports are inferred by the stability they create. And if you have been carrying the feeling that you must be visible, productive, and obvious to be worth anything, the galaxy offers a calmer view. The most important structure in the Milky Way may not shine at all. It simply holds. The Milky Way's memory of mergers is another soft comfort, because it suggests that change can be part of growth without needing to feel like a rupture. The galaxy has met smaller companions and folded their stars into its own, and it continues to do so slowly. The Sagittarius dwarf galaxy's streams are like delicate ribbons, reminding us that history can be carried as gentle traces rather than loud scars. Even the idea of Andromeda, far away and moving through space in its own long arc, can be held without worry. In deep time, galaxies reshape, but for tonight, your only task is to rest. At the center, Sagittarius A star sits quietly, a heavy presence that most of the time does very little that is obvious. It shapes, orbits. It anchors motion close in. It reminds us that the heart of the galaxy is not necessarily bright. It is defined by gravity, by the way nearby stars loop around an unseen focus. There is something almost meditative in that image. Stars circling, repeating paths returning again and again, like a slow breathing exercise written into space. If you want a simple sleeping picture to hold, you can choose just one. You might choose the sun moving along its long orbit, carrying Earth and your sleeping body through a calm curve. Or you might choose the spiral arms drifting like pale currents. Or you might choose the dark matter halo, a transparent dome that holds the whole shape together. Or you might choose the inner bar, stretching across the center like a bridge of starlight. Any one of these can be enough. Sleep does not require a full understanding. Sleep asks only for softness. And now, since this is space science before sleep, you can let the narration itself become part of your relaxation cue. Let your breathing stay slow. Let the space behind your eyes feel dark and comfortable like a night sky without sharp edges. Let your jaw unclench. Let your hands loosen. If your thoughts are still moving, you do not need to chase them. You can let them pass like faint clouds, while the deeper part of you sinks into stillness. There is also a gentle truth about our place in the galaxy that can help the mind release its grip. We often feel that we are separate from the universe, like observers looking outward, but you are made of the same matter that forms stars. The atoms in your body were shaped in ancient stellar processes long before the Earth existed. You are not outside the Milky Way. You are a part of it. Tonight you are resting inside it, within its slow turning, within its quiet structure. In that sense, the galaxy is not merely a topic. It is a home environment, and homes are meant to make you feel safe enough to sleep. The Milky Way holds the sun in its orbit. The sun holds Earth in its orbit. Earth holds you gently against its surface. None of this requires your effort. It is the background stability you can trust, even when your day has felt unstable. So as you drift closer to sleep, you can let the story dissolve into a simple feeling. A large calm system, slow motion, quiet structure, a faint band of starlight across the sky that is actually the inside view of a spiral galaxy, an invisible halo holding everything together. A quiet center, not blazing, not demanding, simply present. If you are nearly asleep, you can stop following the sentences and let them blur the way. Distant starlight blurs when you do not focus your eyes. If you are still awake, that is fine too. You can rest in the idea that the Milky Way will keep turning, whether you are conscious of it or not. The galaxy does not need your attention. Your body does not need your analysis. It needs rest. And so we let the Milky Way become what it has always been for you. A calm, orbiting home. A quiet night sky, a deep time rhythm you can borrow when your own time feels too fast. One calm orbit at a time, you can allow yourself to drift, to soften, and to fall into sleep. If you are still with me, still floating in that quiet space between waking and sleep, we can let the Milky Way feel even simpler now, like a single slow breath repeated again and again. The details we explored are real and fascinating, but tonight they are not homework. They are not a list to memorize. They are a soft way to remind your mind that the universe has a pace that is gentle and that you can borrow that pace. You can imagine the Milky Way as a calm circle, a motion so large that it feels like stillness. The sun travels along its orbit. The orbit is not perfectly smooth in every detail because the galaxy has structure, and structure always adds texture, but the overall feeling is steady. The sun moves with its neighborhood of stars, a local community drifting together through the disk. And while your day may have felt like a series of sharp moments, the galaxy is made of long moments, long arcs that do not hurry. The spiral arms can return as a soothing image, not as giant claws or rigid spokes, but as gentle currents, lanes where starlight gathers like a soft mist. In those lanes, gas compresses and relaxes, and sometimes new stars are born bright at first, then slowly softening as they age. If you could watch the Milky Way from far above, over a very long time, you might see the arms change, their shape strengthen here, fade there, while the whole disk continues to rotate. It would look less like a machine and more like weather, not stormy weather, but slow, patient weather patterns that come and go without urgency. And beneath those visible patterns is the invisible scaffold, the halo that does not shine. It is one of the quietest lessons in astronomy. The universe can have essential structure that does not announce itself. Dark matter, whatever it turns out to be, in its deepest nature, is inferred by the way it holds galaxies together, by the way it shapes the motion of stars and gas, and by the way it helps build the cosmic web on the largest scales. You do not need to picture it as a substance you could scoop up. It can remain an idea tonight, a gentle support that exists even when the eyes cannot see it. The Milky Way also carries memory, and memory in a galaxy is written in streams. When a smaller companion is stretched by gravity, it can leave behind long ribbons of stars. Those ribbons can wrap around the galaxy, faint and delicate like silk threads laid across a dark background. The Sagittarius dwarf galaxy is one of the best-known examples of this ongoing story. It reminds us that galaxies are shaped by long relationships, by slow encounters, by the quiet mathematics of gravity over time. If your mind tends to hold on to events from your own day, it can be calming to remember that not every change needs to be sudden to be meaningful. The Milky Way changes slowly, and yet it becomes something new over time. There is room for that same gentleness in you. You can change without force. You can recover without rushing. You can become calmer, not by pushing, but by allowing. At the core, Sagittarius A star remains a steady anchor point in our story. It is massive, yet mostly quiet. It does not fill the night with constant brightness. Its presence is known through the orbits it shapes, the way nearby stars move quickly around an unseen center. That is another soft theme of tonight. We learn about deep things through patient watching, through careful tracking, through motion over time. Astronomy is full of that kind of learning. It is a science of listening to the universe with instruments, yes, but also a science of waiting long enough to see a pattern. The bar and bulge, the inner architecture of the galaxy, give the Milky Way a particular character. The bar can guide gas inward, shaping inner rings and flows. The bulge holds a dense population of stars, many of them older, carrying the chemical memory of earlier eras. And yet the galaxy is not divided into separate rooms. Everything is connected by gravity. The outer disk and the inner regions are part of one system turning together, influenced by the same invisible halo, shaped by the same long history. Now, if you are growing sleepier, you can let the images become less visual and more emotional. Let the Milky Way become a feeling of steadiness, a sense that you are being carried. The planet beneath you is turning. The planet is orbiting. The sun is orbiting the galaxy. All of it is movement without effort, movement you do not have to manage. When your mind is tired, this can be a comfort. The universe does not require your supervision. If your thoughts are still busy, you might try a simple pattern like a slow orbit of attention. On an inhale, imagine the spiral arms, faint and curling. On an exhale, imagine the dark matter halo wide and quiet, holding everything together. On the next inhale, imagine the distant streams of stars, the galaxy's memory like soft ribbons. On the next exhale, imagine the center, the bar and bulge, and the quiet point of Sagittarius A star at the heart. Then repeat slowly, without strain. Inhale arms, exhale halo. Inhale streams, exhale center. You can let the cycle become soothing, and if you forget it, that is fine. Forgetting is part of falling asleep. You might also notice how kind the scale of the galaxy can be. In daily life, problems can feel enormous because they are close. In the Milky Way, enormous things are far apart, and time is slow. That does not make your life unimportant. It simply places it inside a larger calm. It gives you room to breathe. It gives your thoughts a wider sky. And in that wider sky, there is no need to solve anything tonight. You do not need to figure out every detail of the Milky Way's structure. Scientists are still refining those details with new surveys and better measurements. The galaxy will remain a subject of discovery for a long time, and that is part of its beauty. The unknown does not need to be frightening. It can be gentle. It can be a quiet invitation to wonder, and wonder is often a softer emotion than worry. So let your body keep relaxing. Let your shoulders drop a little more. Let your breath be slow and natural. Let your thoughts become quieter, the way distant starlight becomes softer when you stop trying to focus on it. You are safe here, resting inside a galaxy that has been turning for a very long time and will continue to turn one calm orbit at a time. At this point in the night, you can let the Milky Way become almost silent in your mind, not disappearing, but settling into the background like the hum of a faraway sea. We have already taken the full journey in the order we needed, from the slow rhythm of the galactic year to the drifting spiral arms, to the invisible scaffold of dark matter, to the long memories of mergers and stellar streams, and finally, inward to the bar, the bulge, and Sagittarius A star at the quiet heart. Now there is nothing left to chase. There is only the gentle afterglow of those ideas like starlight that keeps traveling even when you stop looking up. If you are still awake, it might help to remember that being awake is not a failure. It is simply a phase. The body softens in its own timing. The mind releases in its own timing. Tonight you have offered it a slow, spacious place to wander, and that is already enough. You can revisit the galactic year one last time, not as a number but as a feeling. The sun is moving in a vast circle, a loop that is so large it turns into patience. This is the kind of time that does not press on you. It does not count down. It does not hurry you. It simply holds you. And while your own life has deadlines and alarms and moments that demand attention, the larger world carries a rhythm that does not demand anything. It invites you to relax into it. The spiral arms can return as the gentlest possible image, like pale brushstrokes across a dark canvas. They are not fixed beams. They are patterns in motion. Stars drift through them. Gas gathers and disperses. New stars appear where conditions are, right then slowly soften with age. In the arms you can sense the galaxy's flow, the way structure can be real without being rigid. And for sleep, that matters. You do not have to clamp down on your thoughts to rest. You can let them drift and trust that calm will emerge on its own. The dark matter halo can become a kind of invisible blanket in the imagination. Not heavy, not suffocating, just present. It surrounds the galaxy, supporting it, making sense of the way the outer regions keep their steady motion. It is a reminder that the universe has support that is not always visible. The most important things are not always bright. Some are only known by the stability they create. Then the Milky Way's memory, written in mergers, becomes a quiet acceptance of change. The Sagittarius dwarf galaxy and its streams remind us that the Milky Way has been shaped by long encounters. These are not quick events. They are slow foldings, gentle incorporations, history stretched into ribbons. Even the far future with Andromeda can be held as a calm fact of deep time, not an urgent thought. Galaxies reshape over ages. Tonight, your only reshaping is the soft shift of a body finding a more comfortable position in bed. And finally, the core, the bar and bulge, the crowded inner region where gravity creates complex paths. Sagittarius A star sitting quietly at the center, massive, yet mostly still known by the orbits of nearby stars. The galaxy's heartbeat, if you like that image, is not a loud thump. It is a steady, patient pull, a center that holds without calling for attention. Now you can let all of it fade into a single, simple truth. You are inside this galaxy. You are part of this motion. You do not have to do anything to belong here. The same laws that guide stars around the center guide your planet around its star and guide your body toward rest when it is tired. Gravity holds you. The earth supports you. The night surrounds you. Your breath continues. If it helps, you can imagine your thoughts like small points of light moving through a spiral pattern. They appear, they drift, they move on. You do not need to catch them. You can let them pass. You can let the mind become a dark sky, where thoughts are only occasional stars, and most of the space is quiet. And if the mind tries to return to worries, you can answer softly with the scale of the Milky Way, not as an escape, but as a comfort. There are slower rhythms. There are wider skies. There is time enough. For tonight, there is only sleep to welcome, not to force, not to demand, just to allow. So let your breathing fall into an easy rhythm. Let your body feel heavy in the bed. Let your forehead smooth. Let your shoulders soften. Let the muscles of your face relax. There is nothing to solve in the dark. There is nothing to finish. The galaxy is turning. Your world is turning, and you can drift with it.